Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I have some pretty exciting news. So today what I wanted to talk to y'all about is the fact that I am actually moving barns. Yep, so the end of this month, beginning of January, I will be moving to a new barn that is actually closer to me than the barn I am currently at. Now, let me give you a little bit of background on all the goings on and how this had a dog hair. That's weird. I mean, I do kiss my puppies, but that's kind of weird. Anyway, so let me give you the history behind how this all came about. So I have my two horses, Buddy and Rio, obviously, at this barn, and this barn has been great. It's really a great barn currently. None of this has to do with there being anything wrong with the barn. Really, this barn was an answer to prayer when my past barn closed suddenly, and I had 3 weeks to find somewhere new, and I was just praying about it and praying about it. I was worried out of my mind. I was calling a bunch of people, and when I found this barn, it was perfect. I mean, it was the best price for bringing two new horses somewhere different. It was closer. It was everything that I could possibly want in a barn. So fast forward to about 2 weeks ago, I think. So I'm currently taking lessons with someone. So my goal is to become a barrel racer. Yes. Y'all probably don't know about this. Some of you might, some of you probably have no idea, but that's one of my goals, is to become a barrel racer. I just really wanted to finally get into a sport in the horse world besides just being a hobby. I wanted to do something with it, and so that was my decision, blah blah blah. Anyway, so I was training with my trainer and I started going over to her new barn, and we were talking, and I had no plans on moving at all. That I wasn't looking for a new place. That wasn't my plan. I strictly was just going over and having lessons, etc. So I had been praying for a while because in my current barn and financial situation, with wanting to do barrel racing, obviously Buddy and Rio are what they would consider, or what we would consider as equestrians, seniors, which means they are past a time where I could start them on a new sport, especially barrel racing. It's a very intense sport that really needs a lot of muscle development and just working them through it. And both of my horses are 18 and older. Buddy has a bad knee. I mean, Buddy was kind of being trained as a barrel horse when he was 11 when I first got started. But let's fast forward to today. So the plan is to eventually buy a sport horse, specifically to start training in that way, to be an athlete. And it would be a younger horse, obviously. That means more board money. And at this current boarding facility, it is not unreasonable for me at all. Compared to places around where I live, it's a very good price. Currently it is. I just started praying because I really felt like this is what needed to happen, and that doing barrel racing was something that was a next step in the direction that I needed to go. So I was praying about it, and okay, I'm getting ready to go off on a real rabbit trail as far as this is going to be confusing, but just hang with me. So about 2 months ago, something like that, maybe 3, my horse trainer, who was actually the barn manager when I first came to my current barn, she ended up leaving due to some drama. Really, it was an answer to prayer for her because she's pregnant and she started having health issues right after that. And it was a relief for her that she didn't have to be in charge of a barn, but she left. It was a big deal. I was upset. I was upset because, I had a trainer right there at the barn with me, and it was great, and it was perfect, and I was like, this is going to be great. I can do all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then she left, and she ended up, her first barn was 30 minutes away from my house. So lessons, which were kind of sporadic as she was dealing with some health issues, which was fine. I was more worried about her. She was pregnant, blah, blah, blah. It was really far. A lot of gas money. And I just kind of felt like, great, my plans are kind of crumbling to pieces, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, I'm not sure what this means. Because then I started thinking, like, does this mean that I shouldn't do this? Like, what are you trying to say, Lord? I'm listening, and I'm really not confused, just, conflicted about what to do next. So I kept going to lessons in Traveler's Rest, which is where she was, and in comparison to where I live, it's quite a drive. And so after taking lessons for a little while, she ended up moving barns to a new barn, which was closer to me, which was great. I was like, okay, so maybe this will be good in the long run. So I keep praying. And I keep looking at the bank account, and all of a sudden I was just like at this realization. It was either I had to start making a lot more money somehow, or I needed to find somewhere cheaper to keep my horses. Logically thinking, there was no way in Hades that I was going to find a cheaper place to keep my horses. Like, that wasn't even an option. So really my brain was going towards, I need to make more money, but how am I going to do that? And, your mind just starts running. And this is why, it's better to not lean on your own understandings. #truths from the Bible. And, just depend on him. And so I just kept praying about it. And then my trainer says, hey, here at this barn, which is really great, which is where my trainer is, it's not that expensive to keep horses. You do have to do a little more work as far as keeping up with your horse. Not that much in comparison to the price difference. So when I looked up the price, I realized that it was half of what I'm paying now. Half. Actually, a little under half by like $20. So that's pretty amazing. Anyway, so I was like, well, what could be the harm in just going, checking it out, talking to the owner, blah, blah, blah. So I did the whole tour thing. When my trainer first got there, I went for a lesson, so I got to have the tour and have a lesson at the same time, got to see the place. All of the horses were friendly. I'm talking about, like, they see you, and it's not like friendly like, ooh, you got a treat. It was like, just come over here and touch me and pet me and, it was weird, but it was like the coolest thing, because my two boys, yes, they can be all friendly for treats, but really, they have this personality of just enjoying being around human beings. That's just how they are. They're very loving and sweet. So that was a big deal, like, to see all these horses that were just so friendly, and just, there wasn't like a bunch of horses fighting each other. That's not really what they did. If anything, they played, but it wasn't none of that. So I go out to check out the pasture, and I will tell you that this is, to me, a sign, or was a sign, ever since I could remember. Frisian horses, the Frisian breed, the big black horses, like solid black, small draft horses with the really pretty wavy manes, and they're always just so like shiny and black and beautiful. Those are my favorite breeds, and that is my dream horse one day in the future. Obviously not as like a competition horse or anything. I just want one. Like, I just want to have one. And so I go out into this field, and there in the field is a black Frisian mare. And I was talking to my trainer. I was like, is she full-blood Frisian? And she's like, yeah, she is. I was like, no way. You don't really see many of them around here, if any. I don't think I've ever seen one around here. And it was just like a surreal thing, because I've never met one in real life before. And it was like, wow. And what really sold me on it was I walk out into the pasture, and this Frisian mare runs up to me. And I'm not talking about just like starts sniffing me. She lays her forehead up against my chest, and just wants me to start rubbing the bottom of her face and like her head, and just scratching her and just scratching her neck. And she just sat there and let me do it. And just, that's all she wanted. And she just like was kind of leaning her head up against me. That was the sign. That was sign number one, okay? So I go through my lesson, go through the barn, talk to my trainer about what like all of that requires, blah blah blah. And there's still a lot of questions I have that she can't answer. And so she says, well, the owner is out of town. He'll be back in a few days. Let me give you his number and I will let you know when he's back in town so you can call him. I was like, okay. So far, my first instinct is to just be like, oh, I'm done. I'm sold. I'm just gonna say yes. But the problem is I don't want to make a rash decision because something might look good now but not be good for me in the future. And that's part of the reason that I really concentrated on praying about it and listening for the signs and things like that to make sure that this was the right decision. So the days went by and I was praying and I was like, half of me was like really excited and then half of me was like, I wonder what he's going to say. But the whole time, and this is the weirdest thing, I've never felt this before about a place to go, which is another reason, another sign. The whole time, every time I would think about it, sometimes when you think about a new place and you're excited about it, you get this like kind of like sick feeling like, oh, what if it's not as good as I think it is, but it seems so great and I'm so excited. I just had this like calm every time I thought about it, which was a big deal because I can sometimes be anxious. Like I can have a little bit of, I wouldn't say that I'm like, I have an anxiety problem because I don't. It's just, you know, the normal human, like, you have an anxiety of the unknown. People are walking by my room. So anyways, the days went by and I ended up calling him and talking to him, and I had a list of questions that had to be answered a specific way. The reason for these specific questions was Buddy. Rio, if I just had Rio, all the questions that my trainer had answered would have been enough. But there were things that she wasn't sure about that were like the extra stuff for Buddy that I just had to kind of know. And so I had a list of those questions and I was ready to be like, okay, I've got some questions, and if he doesn't answer them the way that I feel like they need to be answered, then I won't do it. I mean, it's half the price, but it's not worth it for me to be worried about my horse and to jump into something just because I think, ooh, save me some money, honey. So anyways, I called him, asked him the questions, got the answers, and every answer was exactly what I was looking for. And so it was at that moment that I realized this was the next open door. Then a new anxiety began to boil up in my chest, and it was the anxiety of having to tell my new barn manager that I was leaving. Because one thing that had started happening was, as this process was going, which only took about a week, it was like a week between me finding out about this place, getting the questions answered, calling the guy, getting the confirmation. It was about a week. It was amazing how quickly it happened. And one of the things was I was going to kind of like be like, maybe the best thing to get through the holidays and all that was maybe let's do February. But then he told me that he only had so many spots left and there were already a couple people that were kind of checking in on it. And so I just didn't want to chance it. I was like, that's it. I'm just going to move in January. I don't care. It's going to be a little rough because it's, you know, New Year's right after Christmas. But guess God wants me in there sooner. Which, you know, the thing is that God knows the future. And typically when he's kind of pushing you in that direction, it's better to do it rather than to hesitate, I have found. So then I was worried about telling the people. And so I was praying about it, and I was like, ugh. Like, I hate telling bad news to people. Like, I hate breaking the news to people as far as, like, people who are nice. You know what I mean? As a Christian, you want to be nice to everyone, you know? And it's just hard to break some bad news. Especially since I found out going on was that more people were leaving the barn. So I was just breaking more bad news to what was already happening. So I prayed about it, and I chose to, you know, go into the situation in a very much like, I wasn't 100% sure if the manager of my barn was a Christian. I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to tell her exactly what's going on, that I prayed about it and that I feel like this is where God has me going next. And so once I decided that, and I prayed about it and asking God to give me peace and asking God to please not let them be too upset with me, I talked to the barn manager and the owner of the farm, and I will tell you this. It could not have gone any better than it did if I planned it. So that will just tell you even more of a sign that this is exactly where I need to go. So, the thing is that I will be leaving end of December, beginning of January, that week. So it's like December 30th through like January 3rd or 4th, whatever. And so that week, at some point, we are leaving. We're going to this new barn, new adventures, new possibilities, and eventually a new horse. But we will see when that happens. I'm not promising any time because I've realized that my timetable is nothing in comparison to God's timetable. So whenever God tells me, here is the right horse for you, then I will let you guys know for sure. But also I will be doing like another video when the time comes, some clips of us getting the horses there and a tour of the barn and all that kind of stuff. So you'll get to see all that and you'll get to see our new place, which I will say, the barn at this new place is not as nice as the barn I'm currently at. And I did tell them that it's not because it's nicer, it's just because this is literally where I'm supposed to go next. No questions about it. And so, yeah. So that's the exciting news. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share, subscribe, comment. Let me know if there's anything that you want to know. Like maybe one day do a Q&A. I don't know. But just let me know. Anyways, so I will see you guys later. And don't forget, be brave, be brave. See you next time, guys.